Hey, and welcome to the delicious recipe here on UPRN. It is Thursday. It's the 27th of 2022, and still get hooked up here. And I called this one there Truck Stop Cafe. We got to turn this other one down. Okay, there we go. And picture's going good. Okay, so what we got going on? Well, there's been a lot of things that haven't been sort of reported in the media over the last week until sort of really recently now that it's getting closer to Ottawa here in Canada. And I sort of had mixed feelings about this at the very beginning, but as looking at this, as we do here on the Delicious Recipe, where we throw lots of things in the pot and we see how it tastes at the end, I've come to a lot of different sort of conclusions at the end. And what it is that's been happening here is that our fearless leader, JT Pinocchio, has increased different mandates again. And uh, people are sort of getting sick of mandates, I think, here in Canada, North America, period. But this deals with the truckers and that. And it spurned with this whole thing about cross border travel of bringing goods back and forth. And a thing that people maybe do not realize or do not recognize is that when a lot of truckers do deliveries and bring goods back and forth, they have very minimal impact with the rest of the population. They hook up a load, they get their manifest, they drop it off the destination, drop off the manifest, and they go or do whatever or do other stops in that. So it's not the sort of the same sort of thing that people would be looking at, that they're walking into crowded areas and walking around and doing things. So that might be a part that some people might be missing there. But the issue, I guess, that has come through here, and this is a very peaceful protest that's going across Canada. It's not like the protests that happened in the States where Antifa and BLM went and burnt down cities and shot people and stuff like that. Even though the mainstream media sort of wants to push it that way and push that narrative that it's going to get ugly and get violent, it's not that, anyways. It's just a bunch of people showing support across there about people are getting tired about the goalposts being moved and moved and moved. And like I said, with they're giving these fear tactics and fear mongering that's going around there, that we're out of food, we're not getting all the stuff they're going through, that this is a big, huge thing. We have to go and demonize these people. Whereas a year ago, JT Pinocchio and his Muppet Groom staff were like saying, support all truckers. These are the fearless workers that are bringing everything in, and give your thanks, hashtag we love truckers, etc. Now he's going that the Ministry of Transportation minister and JT is going like, these people are terrorists. These are fringe groups. This is a very small part of the population that is doesn't want to go around with my version of what science is, my narrative. So anybody that doesn't agree with the ones in charge here, JT Pinocchio, uh, you are an outcast, you are an outlier, you are a terrorist. And I guess the whole purpose of this is to go and say, look at, uh, we're also looking at the science as well, and your version of the science might not be our science. We're not anti-vax, we are just anti-mandating over and over and over again, where you're sort of you're putting more and more restrictions on us. And restricting is not the way to have a society work forward, especially in a democracy. They don't want to hear any debate on anything. It's only their way or the highway. So the truckers have taken the highway, and they're bringing the highway with their trucks down to Ottawa to protest against what this government, and being led by the person that went and caused this huge $1 million other vote against there today, JT. And this is where it's sort of going. So there's been a lot of different things that the media has done. Mainstream media of Canada, has very skewed this in a different way, and they really showed some really interesting pictures. And this is why I say it's always important to follow as many sources as you can. Look at this from many different ways, and people that are in there that are filming it is is a lot different than what you're seeing on the mainstream media, and so many people just follow one source. And it's people, it's a uniting of Canada going, we're sick and tired of this. We're tired. We don't like this anymore, and we're all these rules that keep on changing. But it's not a an angry thing. There's a whole document of rules there where if anybody is acting up or causes any disruptions, to report them to the police. There's support through many different things, and that's the way it sort of goes. And it's just not being viewed that way. And like I totally support free thought, free voice, and I support this in a way. I had a different view of this in a way there that I thought this was going to be hurting small business, but it actually sort of isn't. Yeah, there, Lorilei. I'm not sure if she is. Well, maybe she just walked away for a second. But it's just that there's a lot of things that are going on with this, and I just want to say you have to go and look at this situation in a way that you wonder why that there's a convoy that's coming by here that's going across the country, and why it's not being recorded in mainstream media. And I was looking up who this person was that sort of really sort of started this there. What was her name? Tamara Lynch, Métis woman from BC. And they started this rally back in BC and Surrey, I believe it was. And it's been starting, and it's been a lot of support, even through American truckers that have sort of that are coming up to join this. I think there's another one that's starting that was leaving today, leaving from the East Coast to come and join them. And then I think there was another one talking about coming up from South America to support this. And it's just really surprising how mainstream media does not want to follow this or to sort of demonize this as being something that could be turned as bad as the way that they want, right? And like I've said before, is that when any group that seems to go against the government that's in charge, and we've seen this happen there many times here in Canada with bills like Bill C-10 and stuff like that, where anything that talks negatively against the Canadian government and that's transmitted out there, that they get sort of upset about these things, and they just they don't want you to have another opinion, I guess you'd say, against the narrative of what's going on. And that's the thing that people sort of have to keep on looking at, and looking at that, because we've gone through, since this 2+ years ago has sort of happened. First it was 2 weeks, then it was 2 months, and then it was this, and then it's okay, we get this jab, then we get this one, and now we get this one, and then we get this one. Now, things like this is all in the science, that this has come from the CDC, the WHO, uh, and is that this is a never-ending thing that's never ever going to go away. And so you have to think that, is this sort of like the flu, where people are going to start demanding you flu shots? And it comes to this whole part. You have, I would think about this back in the 1990s. I think this is when it started back in high schools, or was this public schools, and that is that it came out. I remember when this happened was that they said you can't bring peanut butter and jam sandwiches to school anymore because one person is allergic has a peanut allergy. So you have a high school that has 700, 600 people in it there, depending on what it is. So one person is allergic, so all the rest cannot bring that type of lunch anymore. And then it came on to other things, and then okay, we couldn't have. I think there was latex was another one that ended up happening. There ended up being more and more stuff, more things that were allergic that were on the list that you could never bring to school anymore, especially when it came to lunches and that. And you have to sort of wonder about things like that. Is that, where did this all sort of start? Because allergies just don't start and then all of a sudden it's a mass thing. But we became this population of use the word helicopter parents, where everybody has to protect it. We have to think about. I remember this Simpsons thing. Think about the children. Just think about the children. But it was like one child, So even when it comes to sickness, there is that if you're sick, there's ways to keep you away so that you don't make other people sick. But now we're in this sort of this part, and this new variant that sort of happened, which has less than a 0.86% out of 10,000 people that might have a severe case that has all the common symptoms of the common cold, and similar other ones were like the flu. And now we have the flu is back in the thing there, where the flu sort of just all of a sudden appeared again, and we have this cold. Like things, I think things are not being told specifically the way things are being told. And then you look at all the different sites that are coming from these the medical sites that are making these mandates, and then you look at governments, the way that they're mandating and posing restrictions on people. You have to be looking at this stuff over 2 years of all the talking that's gone on, whether you've been listening to it or just listening from one source. But there is so many other sources out there independently that have a different narrative of what's going on. There's a whole part is that there's got 300 doctors on this side, but you got 2,000 on the other side that are saying the exact opposite from the science, and they're looking at the same scientific facts. So that's why I always say you got to question everything, and you have to go and look from many, many, many different sources, and then you come up with your own determination of what it is. And people sort of get stuck in is that they only believe this trusted source because they believe they are telling them the truth. They've never lied to them. And that's the part is where you have to be, I guess, more adult and discernitive in what you're listening to, and do your own research. I say this all the time: do your own research and look into things. We in the world of technology that we're in there today is that stuff information comes to you really fast and hard. You can find lots of things, but also with that comes there now is that a lot of sites are being blocked with the people that are giving you the other part of the argument. And I've mentioned this before, is that when it comes to things, I just remember this back in high school when it came to doing debates. It was in history and stuff like that. We had a question there. It says you debate this side of the argument, and these people debate the other. So you did that, boom, and then the change was is that now you do the other side debating against what you already did, and it gives you a little bit more vaster knowledge of what's going on, and maybe help for you to make a determination. I hear Lauren back in again. She come back and join us again. But she has some really great information there too, and part about this rally that's going on. And I think it's really interesting because we haven't seen something this big in Canada since the beginning of when this jab started happening. When they were talking about the mandates back at the very beginning and questioning the science, because if anybody remembers about science, is that you have a question or a hypothesis, and then you do your experiment, and then you come to a conclusion. And just because you did that there, you have to do the experiment a couple times there to get the same results. And somebody else can get different results from you, and then you cross reference. And that's the whole thing about uh, looking at things and looking at what's going on. And I think this question is going to be out there for a long time, and about what what was released, or what came across the world, and how can we move forward where we don't feel that we're in this much restrictive restrictive freedom anymore. But there's Laura again. So, Laura, you have some really great sites that you've been on there and been talking to a lot of
Excuse
people
me.
across going through this campaign there. Do you want to fill them in with the stuff that you've heard from?
Sure. I took a little break there while you were doing your monologue.
Yep.
I'll introduce myself first of all. I'm Lorilei-The, and I'm Dell's other half. I am the host of the Angel Rock on Monday nights here on UPRN. We are broadcasting, like Dell said, out of New Orleans, and we live in Canada. Actually, the Freedom Convoy came through Thunder Bay.
Hmm.
And again, I apologize if I repeat. excuse me, anything, but we understand it to be almost 300 miles long.
Correct.
Everywhere across Canada, there have been an outpouring of people. What people are doing is putting their differences aside and uniting and saying no more. There's a lot of misinformation out there right now. Actually,
Hmm.
while I took a quick break, somebody sent me a picture with a rumor that Mr. JT Pinocchio had some sort of military escort that he never does, and that his plane had to land in British Columbia. Now, we got to be critical thinkers when we look at this, because the picture indeed does have Mr. JT Pinocchio in there. The sun is shining, people are wearing short sleeve shirts, and everything's green and lush. And don't get me wrong, it can be quite warm in certain parts of British Columbia, but nobody in Canada runs around in short sleeved shirts in the middle of winter. So I assume that this is something completely false and it's an old photo. But getting back to what you're talking about, and the reason I say this is, and I shared what I just did, is because even what we're finding doing what we do, both Dell and I talk to people from all over the world all day long, and we share information. That's the only way you can really find out what's going in other people's countries. Is trusted sources that we've used in the past have put out a lot of untruths. Like there's untruths out there that 50,000 trucks from the US were coming. I'm going to let anybody listening, because a lot of people that don't know about this, don't know what we've been going through in Canada. People I've talked to personally have been utterly astounded to hear what's going on in Canada, when in most of the southern US it's business as usual, back to normal. So, like I said, this started out with basically the truckers were told January 13th late on our national news that it had been announced the mandates for the truckers had been canceled. They were free to go across the border, business as usual. Next morning, JT Pinocchio gets on the news and says, no, that was a mistake. So I heard a little bit of what you said, Del. So what he's been reporting is that this is an extremist terrorist group, racist, misogynist. They're involved with all kinds of terrorist groups, that they're planning on insurrection like in January 6th in the US. It couldn't be further from the truth. As it is, I don't know if Del covered this or not. There was over $5 million raised with GoFundMe for these truckers from all around the world. We
Hmm.
thank you from Canada. Many people in the comments anywhere have expressed how they're standing with Canada, and we appreciate that. We really, really do. And your support. But GoFundMe, through Mr. JT Pinocchio, has frozen all the funding. So one of the gentlemen that is organizing this, Chris, he is paying for all the gas for most of these people on his company credit card right now. And GoFundMe refuses to release the money to them till they decide what they're going to do with this money. And I was just watching a report with Ben Swan. He's an independent news reporter. He used to be with big networks, and part of his motto is truth in news, and he does tell the truth. He made a very good point. Why is it any business of GoFundMe what these guys do with their money? It's been donated freely, hasn't been coerced. This has been raised, by the way, in about a week and a half. Everywhere where they have gone, including in our city, there have been thousands of people providing food, providing you name it. So the latest update I got, and again, don't quote me because I haven't been able to verify it, that the convoy is between 250 and 300 miles long, because anybody can join this convoy. So what's going to happen? They left Thunder Bay, where we live, right smack dab in the middle of Canada. We're about 6 hours north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're driving through to Sault Ste. Marie, which is south of us. Not quite. It's not halfway to Toronto, obviously, but it's getting there. If you cross the bridge, you're in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and then all the truckers and people that are going to Ottawa from Toronto, and that's not too long of a drive for people in Southern Ontario, are all hooking up now. We've seen this reported on CTV News that this is the convoy, right? Because it's not as large. It's not the convoy. It was always planned this way. There were people coming from the north joining up with the main convoy from British Columbia. And then there's people coming from Southern Ontario. It was also just found out it was supposed to be about 1,600 truckers from the US. They didn't know if they were going to get through the border. They did. So they have joined. So thank you to those U.S. truckers.
And the one from Nova Scotia.
Well, I'm
That's
not done. I was just
oh,
going to add that. Now, the other leg is from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, and Quebec. They are all meeting up in Ottawa together. They anticipate that there should be at least 500,000 people there. And the truckers are not leaving until either the mandates are lifted or the government is removed. And you know what? Like, I know Dell was mentioning he wasn't really in favor of this at first, but I said, we've got to do something. And this is uniting the country. But I will tell you what Mr. JT Pinocchio has done. He's turned off all the traffic cams on all of the highways so people can't even see how long this is. When they were coming into Ontario, which is kind of in the middle of Canada, for those of you that may not really know Canada well, the province next to it is Manitoba. The end of the convoy was just entering into the province of Manitoba when they were entering into Ontario. Canada is massive, massive. So, like I said, this convoy is already over 250 to 300 miles long. So, I can't even imagine, and they are not leaving. They refuse to leave until all this is done. Somebody, in the meantime, when I took off, I don't know if I agree with everything they're talking about in there, but they started going through what would happen if the trucks shut down. Because I think there's a lot more than just 12,000 trucks at Ben's One reference. I think what happened is all of the truckers have united, all of them, regardless of what it is. There's still a few working. You see them driving all over. Like I said, the U.S. is joining us as our owner of the network, Joe Montaldo. Give him a shout out for UPRN. He always calls us the U.S.'s little brothers and sisters, being in Canada, and we live very closely. The main thing is something needs to be done. I know I've been repeating this message incessantly on air, off air. We need to stand up and unite as a human race, put your differences aside, and you know what? I'm so glad the world is watching. I'm in a private messenger group in Australia. They weren't getting much news, so I updated them. They are now starting a convoy. I believe it's in Canberra, Australia. Now, they did try this about a year ago. As one of my acquaintances that I know from Australia said, maybe the time wasn't right then. I said, well, the timing is right now. It definitely is right now. And these guys have been working on this for 6 to 8 months. So they've got a lawyer, they've got an accountant covering the funding. They've thought of everything. They've even sent out, and you said you saw Russell Brand cover this, Del,
yep.
a 4-page document to anybody going to Ottawa. If you're bringing signs, don't make them with wood or metal. If you see anything going on, any aggression, anything like that, get away from it. Contact the police. The police have been supporting this as well, which is a huge factor. The other thing I saw in the document was if somebody invites you into the Parliament building and tells you to go in, don't go. Even if they offer you money, do not go, because this is what they're waiting for, is something to screw up there. I do want to tell the world too that they're using an app called Zello, Z or Z, E, L as in lion, L as in lion, O as in owl. Anybody can contact that, whether you're on Android, iOS, whether you're on laptop, computer, what have you, and you can talk to people in the convoy. You can find out what's going on. There's a chat in there. I did say to Del, though, what my concerns are with what we're seeing and the amount of misinformation that is out there, including, apparently, I have not been able to verify this, but I did receive a screenshot of Mr. JT Pinocchio's Twitter saying that he had come in contact with the latest variant and he's tested negative, so he will be self-isolating for 5 days. Now, my big thing is, and we were talking about this off air, how are you going to hide this lie? Because like I said to you, Del, there's going to be news agencies from all over the world there reporting on this. So even if CTV continues their narrative and lie, I mean, they've gone through so many cities across Canada, and the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are there. This isn't a fringe group. This isn't a little extremist
Well,
group.
that was the part that this is what I've been going through for the last few days, and
Hmm.
I've been searching through YouTube videos. I've been searching
Hmm.
through other alternate videos and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And mainstream media is not covering this. I think it was on Blaze TV there today,
Hmm.
and they even said, and even on the Russell Brand part, there is that world mainstream media does not want to cover this because this is such a huge thing, a 300-mile long convoy. Dude, if people out there don't understand how 300 miles long is, that's just think about traveling from your house and going 300 miles, but to think of it with every single truck. And
And
oh,
no, and it hasn't had what the set two legs join up yet. Most of the
right,
population, we have
yeah,
a massive amount of population in southern Ontario.
right.
Never mind our brothers and sisters that have joined us from the US,
Hmm.
and then everything that's coming from out east.
Hmm.
So it's traveling word of mouth
Right.
because it
Eh,
people don't it's not about this isn't about being anti-jab. This is about
right.
standing up for your freedoms and saying, this is enough. And what better people to do it than truckers? I know you were talking about this, how they were celebrated, just like nurses and doctors were. Now they're the vilified, dirty, anti-vaxxed
Yeah.
or unjabbed as the rest of the world is that's not
Right.
doing this. Mm-hmm.
Right. That they've been called basically that they're almost like a terrorist
Yeah,
organization,
they
a
did call.
fringe group.
He did call.
Right.
JT Pinocchio did call them that. Yeah.
And the thing that I said there at the beginning was is that this is the part that mainstream media isn't covering. And until today, CTV covered a little part of it around Toronto, and they were just showing some people that were on a bridge to make it look like it was a small thing. And in the conversation that JT had there, he said, "Oh, this is a small fringe group that is causing things to go against the science."
Science. Yeah.
Right, and this is
What's
the part, and this is a thing that people have to be aware of, that the science is a propaganda word used by people there to go and make you think that you're against science. And
I did.
I already just explained this whole thing about science there before at the very beginning of the show, and this is stuff that
I didn't know
anybody
JT
should have learned,
Pinocchio has a medical degree.
in basic school through their grade school and through high school. And so the way that the mainstream media in Canada is sort of reporting that it's a fringe group and it's a small little thing, they're not
They're
showing the.
shutting off the traffic cameras so
Okay, you said
people
that
can't
already,
see. I know, but still,
right?
like,
But it's the you have to go and look at to the independent stations that are going there, and they'll show you. You can look these up, and it's there. Some of them are already being deleted off of YouTube, but even other places there, you can find these.
the YouTube group or the Facebook
It's
group
this
is
stage,
gone.
but you
They
can
just
find
deleted
these
it.
things where you can see where there's just hundreds and hundreds of people with flags and support banners and that all along the side of the
Thousands.
road. And yeah, and this is in every sort of city, and people are joining in as this convoy is moving across. So it, like I said, it started in Surrey, BC, and it joined in from there, and then it moved across. And you got to figure this is traveling Surrey, BC to Ottawa, just along that whole travel route there. That's about 45, just 4,500 kilometers, and so I guess that'd be about just under 3,000 miles. So, and then you have a 300-mile as of now traveling across the part of Ontario to join up with everybody else there on the next day or two. It's going to be a pretty long row of vehicles. It's not just transport trucks. And this also goes into your snow removal vehicles, your plows, your salters. This is like all truckers that are getting involved in this. And I actually did watch a video where in Toronto they had I think it was, they were saying 5,000 removal vehicles on the 18th of January that were all in protest going around as a preliminary thing, and just going in, clearing out parts of roads. So they'll also be involved. Like it's not just long haul truckers, these transport trucks, it's delivery trucks. It's a lot of things that are being involved with this stuff. But it all started with this whole part of this cross border stuff. And like I said at the very beginning, is that people that work in the industries, like I worked in construction, I work in a grocery store, I worked in a grocery store before, I did deliveries back before. When a truck driver shows up to your store, majority of the time they're just going to the ship and receiving area, dropping off their load and then leaving and going off. they're not impacting all the rest of the store and all the rest of the people of the whole town.
Yeah, you were saying that
they're
earlier,
they're
but
in their vehicle driving and dumping, driving and dumping. And now you might get some nut bars out there that are saying, "Oh yeah, well they're transporting this thing over there." Well, this has already been proven; it can't be done that way, anyways. And so it doesn't matter what you are; it's already been proven there. Like I said before, is that it doesn't matter if you've got the jab or not. You still transmit. You still get it. It doesn't matter. And so, forcing mandates that you're forcing people to get more and more shots put into their body that they don't need, and the government doesn't know individual medical history on everybody that's there in the whole country. If they did and said, okay, well, we looked at your medical history, you can get this, but you can't, and you can, and you can't. They don't do that stuff. They just said blanket search. Everybody's get it because this is what I believe and this is what I think is right. And that's the way. And that's not the way that anything should ever be done. It's never an option.
the Nuremberg Code, the Nuremberg trials proved that many years ago. What I was going to try and add, though, the more harder he tries to shut this down, like I say, shutting down traffic cameras, shutting down their funding. I was just going to try and add when you were talking, they've just shut down the Freedom Convoy Facebook group. They had over 660,000 members on there.
Right.
That's why I mentioned the app, because I've had lots of people from around the world ask me, what is going on with this? We've heard this. We don't know what's going on. Like, what's the truth? What's not the truth? I had somebody locally ask me, well, I've heard that, because you may have heard of the real Pat King. He's involved with this as well. And he can be loud. He's got a big following. But I've spoken with him personally, and I find him to be a man of his word. Definitely. The things we talked about, he definitely followed through with. And somebody had asked me, well, I've heard he's involved with the Sons of Odin. And like, there's so much misinformation going on out there. That's why I mentioned the app, because you can talk to the truckers, you can talk to people in there. There's a main channel. You can't communicate on the main channel, but you can get information. My whole point is, how do you walk away from this as a leader? I don't care how hard you try and hide this. It's getting out there. How do you walk away from this when there's that many people that are going to be there and they're not leaving? They are not leaving. So the thing is, how are you going to prove, as JT Pinocchio, that it was just a terrorist extremist group? That does concern me, because anybody can hear what the plans are on this Zello app, and we know there are organizations out there. You bet your money they're going to show up.
Well, this is the interesting part, because I mentioned this when that Suez Canal thing happened, and when that ship went sideways and that blocked the supply chain there for 6 days, and globalists or economists and stuff like that, they said by that happening there and holding up all the rest of the ships that had to go through that area, that I think 60% of the world's shipping goes through, not just besides what the Panama Canal does in other places, is that this was going to affect the world for about a year and a half to 2 years. And now you have this convoy that's going through Canada that's in disagreement with these mandates, and then you just have to wonder what other part of this, how this is going to impact other things. And I think this is an important point that these people that have been put in power, like I put this point out there before. I said people that are in power are already millionaires. They're already taken care of. They really don't care about the little person. They don't. Anybody that's in the federal government or above provincial and stuff like that.
JT Pinocchio has major shares.
They are wealthier than whatever. They probably have enough stuff. They have shares in companies. They're going to be well taken care of.
No, he has all the shares practically in Aquitas Therapeutics, which is out of British Columbia.
Right.
And it's a maker of the nanolipid protein that's in the jab. That's all I was going to add. Keep going.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, was that they are not really concerned about the little person, the blue collar worker, the people that are poor. And so with this being such a huge thing that's going across there, that was always the question I had. It says, how is this going to affect the common man or the middle class and stuff like that? And this is going to be a thing that's going to be sort of interesting, and see how this plays out and how this happens, because I think they're supposed to arrive there on Saturday or Sunday when everybody totally lines up in Ottawa, and he's gone basically gone AWOL for 5 days to go self isolate. So he's going to go off camera that he can't go and talk to anybody. So you just have to look about who you voted back in again here when you voted in this guy for a party leader. I'm not saying you couldn't have voted for him and stuff like that, but that's why I always made this distinction. I says you have to look at the person and the party as two separate entities, and if the person running the party is different than what the party stand for, you have to actually vote for the person. That's a really important thing, and we've seen through his whole entire power run here in Canada that he's taken responsibility to make decisions without uh, letting it go through Parliament. He's just made his own decisions, and he's gone and pushed a narrative uh, that a lot of people, me myself, I don't really agree with. Like when somebody that supports a communist country and he glorifies the communist leader of that country in China, and he's been said this on many interviews, even on mainstream media interviews, that he glorifies everything about it, and he likes that system, and people aren't picking that narrative up again, and then you wonder why things keep on happening, and you get into situations that we're in, and then you wonder why the rest of the population is going, hey, well, we've had enough of rules and regulations and mandates and these crazy laws that are coming in. We just want things to go back to normal. And he's saying things can't go back to normal unless you follow my science. If you follow my science, things will go back to normal. Well, he's been saying that for 2 years, and his science hasn't worked. His science has done nothing but lock you down more and take away more of your freedoms. And so this isn't an anti JT Pinocchio thing, but this is the part about anybody that's a leader that you're voting for. You should be looking into them a little bit more and finding out their history and what they actually believe in and what they're doing. Because then you end up into situations that I think that we've ended up into now.
Oh, am I allowed to talk now? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I this is just my opinion, but I really do not believe that he was voted into power with the last election. I don't. I know I talk to many people. I don't talk to every single person in Canada, but many of us that went to the voting station asked how they were going to be counting these votes. And we were assured they were going to be counted by hand. And sure enough, he announced his big win. The polls weren't even closed yet in British Columbia. And I understand it had to be verified, but nothing changed. He has gone through, a lot of people don't know this. We had Bill C-10 that was on
Mm-hmm.
the table before this election. He went around Parliament, he went around our Senate, he wrote his own rules, and he put it in there. So he controls what we see and what we don't see as Canadians. Bill C-36, if he decides what we're talking about right now is hate speech, then he's pretty well almost there to pushing this through too. And it wasn't announced on the news. Kind of just sort of found out from doing your own research that it had gone through. With this Bill C-36, it's very loosely worded about what hate speech is, and it's basically the government, the way it's written, is the judge and jury of what they determine as hate speech. And there's even a provision now. Again, I haven't seen the latest write up. I've heard that it was pushed out before the election. I don't know if it's back on the table, but there was a provision in the original write up of this bill that if somebody decided that so and so was going to potentially write hate speech about you, that you could go and report them. It was like Minority Report, basically. You'd
Yep.
get fined and go into jail because there's $75,000 fine and up to 10 years in jail with this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like Minority Report. The person hasn't even done it. And now there was it was about 2 weeks ago, the commissioner of the RCMP, or Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is say like Scotland Yard over in the UK or the FBI over here. Well, she put out an article, like a notice, that you keep an eye on your neighbors and your friends and your family. And if you're feeling that they're saying anything anti government or anything anti-narrative that's out there right now, that they're to call the RCMP, and there will be an investigation.
Hmm.
So we are practically China. So we had to do something. We had to, and I'm so glad that we are standing up as a nation. I mean, like I said, it's beautiful to see that, everyday Canadians standing out in minus 30-degree weather out there, waiting for hours to see these truckers bringing food, bringing blankets, bringing pet food for anything you can think of. And it really gives you a lot of faith with the fact that we're uniting as a nation. Now, Mr. JT Pinocchio says he's not gonna reverse anything, but these guys have nowhere to go, a lot of these guys. So they said I know when I was listening to Chris, I forget what his last name is. I want to say Barber, but I don't quote me. He's one of the organizers, and he said he's never maybe understood how stubborn we can be as truckers, because even their own professional organization, the Canadian Truckers Association, has demonized these guys doing this. They
Yeah,
didn't stand behind them.
yeah, at the beginning, and there was also this was a part that I just watched before we started the show. Is some of the uh, other party leaders donated money, and it
Mm-hmm.
was found out about it, and then all of a sudden they were
It's a big
being
mistake.
yeah, big mistake. So they're trying to get their money back out again because they're thinking about their political career, right? So they totally they support it, and then all of a sudden a group says, "Hey, well, we don't agree with you," and they went in and says, "Hey, we're going to blast you all through social media and say you support this." Because we don't know what the outcome is going to be, and you'll end your political career. So all of a sudden, some of them are pulling their money back out again. See, this is the weird thing. See, everything comes down to politics in the country. They made the pandemic political. Now they're trying to make this political because they're looking at how much of Canada is supporting. You got to figure that Canada, I think, what are we, 47 million people that live within about 100 miles of the U.S. border, and you have such a huge group that is going across there. You have a lot of people that can't get out and stuff like that. You have a very mixed age group of people that are around here, and a lot of people that weren't on the streets at minus 30 degrees outside there that couldn't get out or wasn't able to get out to support. But you have a lot of support that was online, and a lot of this stuff that these groups that have been supported online is now being blocked by certain social media things and being blocked and stopped, where the numbers would actually be higher in the amount of support. So it's a very funny thing, and this is one thing that it was interesting that on the Russell Brand had said there this morning there when he was like, oh, he was all like in support about this, but he was telling people, says you have to be very, very careful about how mainstream media will always villainize anything that goes against their agenda. And he sort of, it was interesting. If you want to check out his thing that he talked about there today about it, the trucking convoy that was going across Canada. It was actually really good, and he gives a lot of different. He finds a lot of information. He always looks for a discord, a pro and con. And like I say on my show, we throw everything in the pot. We're looking at it from many different things and see how it tastes at the end. So whether you agree with it, whether you like the taste of it or not, we give you the ingredients here to go out and make your own recipe or try this recipe and to go from it to branch out. That's the whole thing about finding information and knowledge. You can't just hear it from one source. You got to go and find all the sources and then come up with the taste that tastes good for you. Is that not correct there, Laura?
Well, it is. And the other thing I always have great respect for are people that do the kind of thing that we do. We're talking about, something that we're passionate about and that we're living through right now. History is being made. So I always say, don't trust what we're saying. Please do your own research. The only thing I encourage people to do is use a different search engine
Mm-hmm.
than Google. Just because you're not going to find the same results. Compare it to other search engines like DuckDuckGo and
Mm-hmm.
what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to add to that is I also encourage people to take a look at what's going on over in the UK, what's going on in Ireland. What is the statement of the World Health Organization right now? And what is the statement coming out of Israel? I think if you haven't looked into those things, you will be absolutely astounded with what you see, what is coming out of there.
Well, the whole British Isles there, Ireland, Scotland, or Britain, Wales, they've gotten rid of their mandates.
And Israel has admitted quite a bit
Yeah.
in their media about the mistakes that were made.
hmm
World Health Organization is recommending, as I believe I seen something on that this week, that all travel bans be lifted because it's not making a difference, except for Canada, Australia, and of all places, Argentina.
Well, this is a weird, and this is not a weird thing. I mentioned this day one when this all started, and we were talking about this many times. We talked about Roxham Road, but we also talked about, and I mentioned this for months and months and months, is that we were taking in refugee flights into
We still are.
Canada the whole entire time.
Mhm.
But we were locking down the the Canadian public. But
Mhm.
then we were taking in refugees and dropping them off throughout Canada to every single part of Canada. So you figure this was all by JT and the Sunshine Band and that whole Muppet group that were running things in that and that
Not where are.
and no, but that was a thing though, right? So you lock down the population, but then you keep on flooding it in from untested people into the country, and then you wonder why numbers or whatever. And I think this is just conspiracy theory. This part here, opinion on that part. I think it was a whole part of a power play to gain control to go and move this narrative towards this Agenda 2030.
Well, he's been very open about
Yeah,
the Great Reset
yeah.
and one word like the New World Order. He's said this in news conferences. He's
hmm
been very open about it.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a part of there. I've talked about this for 2 years. I talked about the Soros connections. I talked about the Klaus Schwab connections. I talked about all this stuff there on previous shows. And these are just more information ingredients to put in there. I'll keep on mentioning these things because these names keep popping up, and
Follow the money.
they keep on popping up even in mainstream media now. And they are, and I said the narrative about trust the science, inclusiveness, sustainability, when they start using buzzwords. And this was another part that, because I've mentioned this many times, when they use buzzwords like this, you have to wonder,
Build back better.
right? Those are another ones there. And there's another part that I think Russell Brand mentioned there today. He says, if you don't understand the buzzwords that they're being used, you won't understand the narrative, or you might fall into a very deep conspiracy hole. But following the money is a good way to go. Like we already know that with the Clinton Foundation, what they did with that, and it's surprising that they're even posting her to run again after all the stuff. She was supposed to already be in jail and indicted, but that's a story for another day. But
Hmm.
but yeah, we went on for an hour with the truckers, anyways, and this trucking convoy that's going by. And I just encourage people out there. It says, if you're interested, just go and search in different media sources and just look it up. Type in the words Trucking Convoy Canada 2022 and then see what you get. You'll get CTV news up there. You'll get some Rebel news. You'll get some independent news. And a lot of them are only like 3, 4, or 5 minutes long, but you'll get different views over different days to see what's going on, and maybe you'll see something that's different than what you might be seeing in the little snippet that your mainstream media, your news source that you're watching, or your newspaper, if you still read newspapers, is telling you, and or what your other friends on social media are giving you of what they've only read of one source. And that's what I should say. It's so important. Take them, research it all. So, anyways, we're coming close to our end there. Lorilei, tell them what's coming up for you and where they can find you and everything like that.
Well, the one thing I do want to remind people is look at that app Zello. You can find up to the minute information right from the horse's mouth, if you want to call it that. You'll be able to converse with people, you can leave messages of support. Other
Yeah.
thing, if you really want to know up to the date minute news, Canada-unity.com/bear hug. That is their site. They're counting down when they actually are going to be arriving tomorrow night. A lot of them into Saturday, and they have been trying to update mostly on Facebook, but a lot of stuff's getting shut down on there. So, like I said, there's two other ways. Talk to people in Canada that know what's going on. They'll be able to update you. And
Yeah.
I'd also like to welcome you to come and watch my show on Monday nights here on UPRN, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 11 p.m. It's the Angel Rock. If you want to get a hold of me to book any readings or healing sessions, I have a new store opening too with a lot of my resin pieces I'll be doing. You can find me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. And thank you for having me here with you. This is an interesting discussion. People want to know about this, I've been hearing.
Right. And so you've been listening to the delicious recipe here on UPRN. You can check us out Thursdays at 7 p.m. Up next, we got Michael Angley with
Red
the
Pill News.
Red Pill News there. So
Take
check
care.
him out there too as well. And stay tuned. And we'll see you all next week.
See ya.